precisely 1:15. This is the news on Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News is edited by Danushka Madhavela, read by Sabrina Zawahir. The headlines. The government expects more than 925 million rupees tax income is expected this year. The Speaker says that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals has become extremely challenging for developing countries. A compensation of 100,000 rupees per hectare will be paid for the farmers who lost their crops due to the recent floods. The government sets goal to allocate 1% of overall land area for industrial use. 1,500 midwives will be recruited promptly. In world news, Israel says ground operations expanding as it intensifies Gaza bombing. In sports, England overcome Pumas to win Rugby World Cup bronze medal match. Now the local news in detail. Customs Director and media spokesman Sivali Arugada says the government expects more than 925 million rupees tax income is expected this year. 742 million rupees has earned as tax income so far this year. Addressing a media briefing held in Colombo yesterday, the Customs Director said that the Customs Department is working tirelessly to achieve the revenue goals set up by the government. He also said that in the report issued by the International Monetary Fund has made 5 recommendations regarding the Customs Department. Minister Mahinda Amaravira says that a compensation of 100,000 rupees per hectare will be paid for the farmers who lost their crops due to the recent floods. The cabinet approval has been received in this regard. The minister, addressing a SAARC Regional Agricultural Development meeting held at Gannorua yesterday, said that though the paying of compensations has delayed by almost 1 year, these will be paid without delay. The minister stressed that in the future, compensations will only be paid for the farmers who started the cultivation activities at a proper dates. If the farmer has not started cultivations at the date announced at the harvesting seasonal meeting, no compensation will be paid in the future despite the amount of the crop damages. He also said requested farmers to start cultivations at the correct time to face possible upcoming water crisis. Speaker Mahinda Yapabewardena said in a current global context, achieving sustainable development goals has become extremely challenging, especially for developing countries including Sri Lanka. The Speaker further pointed out that while the current world is facing unprecedented global challenges, the situation is heightened due to the COVID-19 pandemic and its consequences, the adverse impact of climate change and rising conflicts that have created multiple impacts on the human community and the planet. The Speaker also mentioned that Sri Lanka is working tirelessly to overcome those challenges. He expressed these views while participating in the 147th Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union held in Luanda, Angola. The Speaker further said that last year, Sri Lanka experienced its most challenging period in recent times amidst unprecedented global crisis. In the process of overcoming challenges resulting from widespread social unrest and protests, the government and the people of Sri Lanka have ensured a peaceful political transition, while our democratic institutions have remained stable, Speaker added. The 147th Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union is held in Angola from October 23rd to 27th. Parliamentary action for peace, justice and strong institutions is the theme of this Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, which is the 16th among the 17th Sustainable Development Goals established in 2015 by the 193 member states of the United Nations to eradicate global poverty in the next few years. This news is brought to you by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing local news, Industry and Health Minister Dr. Ramesh Patirana yesterday stated that due to the limited availability of land for industrial purposes in Sri Lanka, the objective is to designate 1% of the country's total land area for industrial use. Furthermore, he pointed out that there was a remarkable opportunity to achieve a historic record in our country's export earnings, with the potential to reach $13.1 billion by the year 2022. Patirana made these remarks during his participation in a conference held at the Presidential Media Center yesterday with the overarching theme of Collective Path to a Stable Country. State Finance Minister Ranjit Sinhala says that steps have been taken to speed up the recruitment of 1,500 family health service officers. This group has been waiting for employment for 3 years after passing their interviews. The State Finance Minister further said that priority will be given to health recruitment. Accordingly, specific decisions on the relevant recruitments will be given in the next few days by the Management Services Department. The minister said that in a discussion held yesterday with the Family Health Services Officers Association at the Finance Ministry. According to a Gazette notification published in January 2021, interviews have been conducted to recruit 2,500 midwives. Around 1,000 of them are currently undergoing training and the rest are still waiting for jobs. The competition to select the best magician in Sri Lanka will be held tomorrow. The event will be held at the YMBA Hall in Ratmalana. Senior advisor of the competition, Ronald Alves, says that the winner will get the Mudaliyar ACGS Amarasekara Trophy. The event will be entrance-free, and organizers invite people to grace the occasion and experience the magic shows. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Minister of Industry and Health Dr. Ramesh Patirana stated that due to the limited availability of land for industrial purposes in Sri Lanka, the objective is to designate 1% of the island nation's total land area for industrial use. He pointed out there was a remarkable opportunity to achieve a historic record in the country's export earnings, with the potential to reach $13.1 billion by the year 2022. Patirana made these remarks during his participation in a press conference held at the Presidential Media Center yesterday with the overarching theme of Collective Path to a Stable Country. That was main news.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
In Watchlight, security surveillance has been beefed up island-wide to crack down on organized criminals, particularly in the southern and western provinces, amid the escalating wave of killings and robberies across the country. A senior police officer told that the Sri Lanka police have implemented both short and long-term measures to tackle criminals and organized criminal gangs in the country. That came to in Watchlight. Moving on to world news. Taking a look at the headlines of the world news. Israel says ground operations expanding as it intensifies Gaza bombing. Donald Trump and children to testify in fraud case. Taylor Swift has re-recorded version of 1989, the best-selling album of her career. Now the world news in detail. Israel says it has killed the head of Hamas paraglider operations during the group's attack on Israel on 7th October. The Israelis said earlier their ground forces were expanding operations targeting Hamas in Gaza. Huge explosions were seen in the territory, with Israel warplanes carrying out heavy strikes. Hamas says clashes have taken place in the northern Gaza. Reports say some Israeli troops and tanks have entered. Communication networks went down around the same time, meaning residents in Gaza cannot be contacted. The UN General Assembly called for an immediate humanitarian truce, with 120 states voting for a resolution put forward by Jordan. Israel has been bombing Gaza since the 7th October Hamas attacks that killed 1,400 people and saw 229 people kidnapped as hostages. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says 7,000 people have been killed since Israel's retaliatory bombing began. Donald Trump and 3 of his children will soon take the stand in a New York business fraud case. A judge ruled on Friday that Mr. Trump's daughter Ivanka must testify in the case against her brothers and father. She was dismissed as a defendant in the case earlier this year, but her brothers Eric and Donald Jr. were not. The New York Attorney General's office said the former president will testify on 6th November and his 3 children will take the stand before him. Their testimony is expected over 3 days from Wednesday next week, starting with Donald Trump Jr. Judge Arthur Enegron has already ruled that Mr. Trump inflated the value of his properties to secure favorable loans. The trial focuses on 6 other claims made in the lawsuit, including falsification of business records, insurance fraud, and Taylor Swift has delighted fans with the re-recorded version of 1989, the best-selling album of her career, along with 5 unheard songs from those sessions. The demand to hear Taylor's version of the 2014 album caused technical problems and some streaming services, Swifties reported on social media. It's the latest in the string of re-recordings by Swift, who wants to take back ownership of her old material. With that, we conclude the world news. Prior to concluding, the headlines of the world news once again. Israel says ground operations expanding as it intensifies Gaza bombing. Donald Trump and children to testify in fraud case. Taylor Swift re-recorded version of 1989, the best-selling album of her career. That ends World News.
Development News.
Sri Lanka is looking beyond strengthening ties with its largest traditional export destinations, the USA and the EU, UK, to deeper interrogation with South Asia, Southeast Asia and East Asia nations. A statement from the President's media division said Sri Lanka is engaged in preferential trade agreement negotiations with Bangladesh with an emphasis on trade in goods. That ends Development News.
Sports News is brought to you by Shakti. Refresh your mind and body with Shakti Energy Drink. 350 rupees only. Available at island-wide leading groceries and supermarkets. Shakti. Taste the power.
Moving on to sports news, England completed their Rugby World Cup campaign with a victory as they narrowly overcame a proud Argentinian performance in the 3rd place playoff in Paris. Ben Earl slid over as England shot out to an early 13-0 lead, but Argentina clawed their way back and were briefly ahead through Thomas Kubeli and Santiago Carreras tries before England's Theo Dan charged down a kick and crossed. Owen Farrell's boot kept England's noses in front as he exchanged penalties with Nicolas Sanchez in a nervy finale. Backed by a believing crowd, Argentina launched a late assault on England's line, but Sanchez pushed a penalty to tie the scores wide, allowing Steve Borthwick's side to finish France 2023 with a win. After seeming set to stroll to victory early on, there was heartfelt relief among England's players as the final whistle blew. It means England's campaign ends as it began. 7 weeks ago, they overcame the Pumas 27-10 in the heat of Marseille. That ends Sports News.
Shakti. Refresh your mind and body with Shakti Energy Drink. 350 rupees only. Available at island-wide leading groceries and supermarkets. Shakti. Taste the power.
Go ekathiyana youth ekat life eke change ekat niyameta set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekat niyameta set wenna friendship එක menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account. NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Echoing its leadership in bringing the latest technological advancements to Sri Lanka, SLT Mobitel has announced the introduction of Apple's latest iPhone 15 lineup with exclusive benefits that promises to redefine the smartphone experience. as an authorized reseller for Apple products and services, SLT Mobitel further cements its status as the premier destination for those looking to embrace the forefront of mobile technology. With its 5G-ready network, unparalleled network coverage, and a noteworthy 3-year legacy as the fastest mobile network, SLT Mobitel has redefined the mobile experience across all categories. That was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth ekata life ekේ change ekata niyameta set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekata niyameta set wenna friendship එක menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news. The State Ministry of Provincial Councils and Local Government Affairs says that from the 1st of January next year, the payments made to all local government institutions will be made online. State Minister Janaka Vakkumbura mentioned that the pilot project has been successfully implemented. He said under this initiative, people will be able to pay various payments, including assessment rates, efficiently. That came to you in economic news.
Weather report.
Finally, we take a look at the weather report. The Met Department says that atmospheric conditions are favorable for development of afternoon thunder showers. Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places in the most provinces of the island after 2 p.m. Heavy showers about 100 millimeters are likely at some places in Western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in Western, Sabaragamuwa, Central and Uva provinces during the morning. That was the weather report. Prior to concluding this bulletin of news, the headlines once again. The government expects more than 925 million rupees tax income is expected this year. The Speaker says that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals has become extremely challenging for developing countries. A compensation of 100,000 rupees per hectare will be paid for the farmers who lost their crops due to the recent floods. The government sets goal to allocate 1% of overall land area for industrial use. 1,500 midwives will be recruited promptly. With that, we conclude the news, and over to my friend and certainly yours, who's all geared up to keep you entertained with a wonderful collection of music. Over to you, Dilshan.